What am I doing? See, Zach, I told you. I added new buttons and it goofed up on me immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dale Maxwell. This is KickASSery. And I'm screwing up as we start. This is just dumb. This is dumb. But what do we do here? We talk to incredibly amazing people like Zach Dupree. Sorry, Will. You're Zach. You're always Zach to me. I love you, brother. What is this guy about? Well, I'm going to let him give you his credentials. But here is my take on this amazing human being. He and I started in the same tiny community, which I know that's going to come up. And let's be honest, most of us that came from the Salmon, North Fork, Lemhi County area in Idaho weren't given a lot of options to become great. And this gentleman said, screw you all. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do phenomenally amazing, incredible things. And he spent probably half of his adult life at this point in college or more. I would assume, because the dude's brain is the size of a Cadillac, and he's gone on to do, I'm super excited to learn more of what he's doing right now. So Zach, who are you? Where did you come from, and how did you get to where you're at right now?
Yeah, so I grew up in Salmon, close to North Fork, where you're from. I ended up going to college in Montana. So I went to Montana State in Bozeman first, and that's where I got my bachelor's. And then speaking of credentials, I do have my PhD. I got my PhD in 2019 from Washington State University, where I specialized in studying gravitational waves.
Okay, gravitational waves. What the heck does that mean?
Yeah, so the quick and dirty of it is, so I was always very interested in space, specifically in black holes and neutron stars, which are the next densest thing besides black holes. Anyways, when you get two of these systems near each other, two black holes, two neutron stars, they basically start rotating around each other and they ripple space-time outwards. So my other favorite analogy is if you think of the coin machine in the supermarket where you put like 2 quarters in, and they like start rotating, and then they get closer and closer and spin faster. It's kind of what the black holes will do to each other, but the byproduct of that is releasing energy by vibrating space outwards through these gravitational waves. So my degree was specialized in theoretical physics to study that. And I was creating, the specific title was I was creating better methods to detect them here on Earth. So to reduce noise and to improve analysis.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what I'm talking about right there, is brain the size of a Cadillac. Zach, and so here's the thing. I remember going back when you were at the beginning or in the middle, you and I had an opportunity to have a long conversation, and I just kept asking questions. And the thing that has always impressed me about you, brother, is you are a brainiac. You've always been a brainiac. And I mean that with love and respect. Absolutely. And yet you're very unassuming in that. You're very humble in that. And, a lot of the super geeks and the super nerds that I know in this life, that's the muscle they flex. And that's something to be very proud of, for sure. But until you start asking questions and you're like, hey, what is this? Then you're just like, whoa, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, humble is probably a good way to say it. Sometimes I'm probably a bit more cocky about it. But anyways, I just always saw myself as, someone, it's obviously my skill and talent to be good at those things, to be good at what I guess I call abstract thinking now, or just math in general, because I do a lot more than physics these days. But that talent was always innate problem solving to me. And so I, got good at it, felt skilled at it, and it's always been something I've excelled at. But, I think like the key is knowing that everyone has those skills, maybe just not in like my specific area. And maybe that's why I'm humble, is because I was lucky enough to grow up in an area with, a bunch of diverse people, all the people in my family have, areas that they specialize in or areas that they love to work in. And I always just felt mine was akin to that. It just happens to be something else that people revere a lot, I guess, or people see as, very affluent or high. But I've never felt that way. I'm just, like my brother's good at mechanics. I'm good at math. Just how it shook out. And I just want to use my talents where I can.
When did you start recognizing that math was your jam?
Probably around high school. I've always been interested in problem solving or, education in general, wanting to be well educated, wanting to do more in school, wanting to go to the advanced courses. For a long time, I wanted to be a lawyer, just because I liked arguing with my mom all the time. But
you're
so I thought I
wrong,
might go,
Zach. You're wrong.
I thought I might go into that, but I haven't always been the best writer. And so I started naturally gravitating away from that, no pun intended, and then started just enjoying math more. And so by the time I was going to college, I decided I didn't want to do pure math. I thought that was probably pretty nerdy, and I didn't really understand like what you might use pure math for at that age. And so I decided to apply it to physics. Physics was always challenging. And then through school, I decided to pick up a double major of applied math. So I ended up doing both. But yeah, around high school is when I really started to think that I was interested in wanting to go into a STEM or engineering type field.
That's amazing, man. I could pick your brain forever. So okay, so here's a question. The small community, and I've had a few Salmonites, Lemhi Countyers on here, and I love the conversation of, salmon's not. It's funny. It's honestly, salmon on one side doesn't have a huge reputation of creating high level blah blah, right? But then when you really start cracking into it, actually it does. I mean, if you really start thinking about classmates and relatives and friends and kind of look through the history of that area, it actually does.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that, do you think?
I wonder if some of it's just like bias to your area, like you see it differently. So I wonder if you were to start to dig in. The scientist in me thinks if you were to dig in other areas, you'd likely find, if you looked hard enough, you'd find those that are exceptional there or, really affluent in their areas. But I think specific to this question, salmon and like the people that live there really bring about, rigor is probably not the right word, but, hardworking, like deeply caring, right? So you have these ideas and this small community that to excel there or even to survive there, you have to be hardworking. You have to like really put in the effort to do your things. You really have to drive to make your goals. And, I wasn't specifically, but like, if you're a ranch kid from that area or whatever it is, you're not, when you get to something that's hard, you're not, shocked by it because you've already been living in such a challenging area that, everyday life there is already a challenge. You're already helping your dad do all the chores. You're already helping your mom maybe chop wood or, any of those things. And so when it gets time to, stay up late and do your homework, if that's something you're interested in, you are not likely pulling back from that. You're continuing to do it because it's something, hard work is just what they're doing.
Right.
At least that's the way I viewed it and how I felt comfortable, pulling the hours or doing the efforts that I've done.
Right. Putting in work is not something strange. Even for the townies, I call them townies, it's putting in the work. And I think the other thing also is, in a community like that, in the pre-show, you and I were talking about, now that we've been out and we've experienced things and talked to people from the East Coast and other places, how remote where we grew up is. I mean, how really remote it is. And I think that's another piece of it is that we recognize that if for us to be more, do more, we have to work to get out. And, there's no community college down the street where we can still stay at home and go to school. You have to move out. You have to be independent. You have to go And I think that that's something else, a piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that I would agree. I think that makes sense.
So speaking of hard work, there's something I want to brag on here just for a minute. My button worked. I pushed the right button and the thing happened. I'm stoked. I want to show this picture off. Tell me, okay, brother, you've lost how much weight?
In total, around 160 pounds.
That's a whole freaking person, bud.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Like the heaviest in grad school, I was somewhere like this was 2017, 2018. I was somewhere just above 400 pounds body weight.
wow. I mean, let's be honest. You're 6 foot what?
6'1".
Yeah, you're not a tiny feller in the first place.
Yeah.
But now, dude, I've been watching from afar, and I love your transition. I love what you're doing, and the iron that you're moving, and the dedication, the hard work. Is that just for funsies, or do you have a goal with that?
So I'm competing in my first powerlifting meet, actually end of this month, start of December 2nd.
No.
I'm doing my first powerlifting meet. It started out just as like, so briefly, the stages were starting to lose weight, eating healthier, for lifestyle, starting to drop pounds. I grew up, what I would call pretty athletic in high school. I like to do sports, team sports, but I had lost a lot of that. So as I started to lose weight and feel more comfortable in myself again, I was able to start first just walking, and then I started going to the gym. And then the kicker was in Sam and my mom, one of her friends that I didn't know too well at the time, but one of my good friends now, Kellen Miller, I think is his last name, but he owns the CrossFit gym there in town.
Yep.
And so I'd lost a bit of weight and I was starting to get back into the gym. I've never been a gym person. With all the team sports I did, I was never doing weightlifting. But she got me in some sessions with him when I was visiting there for spring break once. She said, just check it out, see if you like it. And I feel like with all of the YouTube videos I was watching of people doing like strongman and powerlifting and how motivating that was to me and getting back into the gym. And it just really lit a new passion for like a solitary sport because, I don't have time to find teams now, but like I can go lift weights by myself. And that really, ignited a new passion to do strength training and to do, powerlifting as a sport. And then this last year, about 8 months ago, I found my coach. His name's Alex. There's a new gym opening up near me, and I said, hey, I might as well just start investing some money and really, really kicking the fire to this because, I like to set goals. So I figured I've been making it a while on my own, but I'm going to find a professional now to dial this in. And so he started training me back in April. And yeah, that last picture you were showing is my most recent deadlift max. I think it's 470 pounds.
Come on, button. There it goes.
Yeah.
Wow. So
no, I think that's 440. Sorry, it's in kilo plates. But yeah, anyways, over 400. I've been working with Alex, loving it, lifting a shit ton and
that's
doing
amazing.
Great. Yeah.
So strongman, what lifts come into that? What is, explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So the difference here is powerlifting as a sport is your typical big three lifts. So that's squat, bench, and deadlift. And as a sport, you're like doing 3 attempts on the platform. You get like a little bit of time to do them. And your score is your max lifted. That's slightly different to the sport of strongman, which is what they call implements, but they're just oddly shaped things. Or I wouldn't say functional is the right word, but you're doing things like really heavy farmer's carries, or you're putting the yoke across your back and trying to walk it with, 600 plus pounds, lifting stones, doing overhead press. So the events there vary a lot more, but they're much more traditional to the human aspect of overall strength, meaning can we move awkward objects and how heavy can we move them?
Which means your core needs to be rock solid.
Yeah, I would say so. My coach is he's in the pro strongman division. He just competed at a huge event, but yeah, that guy's a monster. He will deadlift over 800 pounds for reps. But yeah, training under him has been great. We're going to do this powerlifting meet, and he's going to get me in shape for a strongman meet in the spring. So that's pretty exciting.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So how I keep coming back to it because it fascinates me. And of course it's personal, is, going from small community to big community, and going from an area where there's not a lot of opportunities and there's not a lot of resources, to going with what we just talked about on getting out and going places. How did you, I mean, yeah, you were into science and you were into that kind of stuff and the math, but how did you land on astrophysics? Did I say that right? Astrophysics?
Yeah. So I feel like, I mean, I don't know if this is the exact moment, but it's always the feel good moment I have, like looking back, which I was in a high school physics class in Salmon, and I was already enjoying like the STEM aspects of it, but we were watching a video, it was like Friday or something, right? Like it's a throw day at class. They're just putting a video on for us, for like the 5 people that took physics that year. Anyways, it's about Stephen Hawking, and it's about, him learning about Einstein's equations and him studying black holes and just this like crazy nature about them, these unknowable objects, and how weird they are, how cool they are, how amazing they are. And I just felt like watching that movie, by the end of it, I was I was sold. I'd watched the movie and I was just enamored about what black holes are and how you would study them or how you learn more about them. And from that point, I was pretty interested and knew I would study as much as I could to learn about space and especially about black holes. And that was what kind of just kept driving me through most of my degrees, was I want to learn.
That's what got you to this point.
Yep. From Wazoo back in 2019. It's my wife, Kelly. But yeah, that's what got me there. Specialized astrophysics, doing my PhD. It was a good time.
That's crazy, man. That's amazing. And I'll be, I mean, completely and totally honest, man, just watching you throughout the years and, us connecting through 4-H. That's real. I mean, we really didn't know each other super well in Salmon because there's a bit of an age difference.
Mm-hmm.
When did you graduate?
08.
Okay, yeah. So there's quite a bit of an age difference there. So, but we still stayed connected through 4-H and whatnot, and just watching you progress and talking to you, and just your brain power kept getting notched up, and it was, but the amount of fun that we had was crazy. And I kind of want to come back to the 4-H aspect of things. Is such an amazing time. And the people we got to hang out with and do, there's little Zachy, and of course Brad, he's part of the family here. He's an ass kicker here, and of course that's our buddy Daniel Utter, who he just had babies.
Twins.
Yeah. Shout out to Daniel on that one. We had such a great time, man. And we had such a great impact. And of course, I just love this picture.
Yeah, it's a good one.
How do you think that in what you ended up doing, how did that kind of aspect of your life, did that help you?
Yeah. So did 4-H help me towards my goals in that aspect? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. And got you to where you're at now.
Yeah. I would always see 4-H, especially the later years where I was, more involved in the collegiate level and helping with the leadership side of things. I always saw that as, definitely a piece of, what builds me, what makes me who I am. I obviously always loved 4-H. I loved going to team conference. I loved hanging out with the friends that I grew up in Salmon doing it as a team. You don't get much exposure to the outside, but it was always fun to go. Like the events I'd leave Salmon to go do were sports, some Christian youth group stuff, but mostly 4-H. So every year I knew I'd be able to go see new people, hang out with cool kids during the summer, at least 2 or 3 events through 4-H. And so that obviously interested me. And then, you know, you grow the community there, you learn your friends, and sticking through that in college and having a chance to what you would call maybe giving back, but it's probably selfishly just stay close to that circle of friends and have an opportunity to go, you know, see people you only see once a year was always exciting to me. So I always enjoyed it, but in the background, what it's building and what I've learned now is it's just helped me learn so many leadership skills that I can draw on, that I do draw on, you know, throughout school, throughout my career. I mean, I don't love public speaking, but through 4-H, you're kind of thrust into that, whether that's informally by like telling a group of people what they're going to do, or leading a group of kids through what they need to be doing for the day, or even giving like, you know, impromptu speeches. It was a really good way to pick up some of those skills in a less pressurized sense than, hey, you've got to take this course to learn to do it, or you've got to do X, Y, or Z, you know, 50 reps to do this. And so you come in with those skills. So when I would start TAing, for example, in grad school, I didn't know much about TAing. And I did, of course, get the training that they give you. But a lot of what I learned to do there was the same things that I've been doing, you know, with groups of younger kids at either camp as a counselor or through 4-H leadership stuff, guiding them, you know, this is what we need to do. This is your tasking for the day. Let's get it done. How to, you know, personalize with them on their level, how to talk with people above you to make sure you're doing your tasking correctly. I just think that it helped me grow so many leadership skills that I wouldn't have had opportunities to in other ways that I still draw on to this day. And 100%. I would say, you know, people, I've been told, even just recently, someone said, hey, we want you to do this at work. We think, you know, you're kind of a natural leader and you know, you'll be good at it. And I've always found that weird for people to say natural leader, because you start learning those things as a child. They're not so, I mean, barring if you're the most, you know, natural leader, you know, high school president, there are a lot of people who maybe do get that title. But barring that, I mean, again, it's one of those things that people just see the outcome. They don't see the years of work or the years of effort or trials, failures before that. You know, I've bombed in plenty of speeches or bombed in front of many groups, you know, so to say natural isn't quite true. I've just had a long runway to practice, you know, interacting with people and, you know, leadership skills.
Well, and granted, you look at things more analytically as well. But yeah, nature doesn't happen by happenstance either. You know, the reason nature happens is from how many millennia of blah, blah, blah. And I agree with you. And that's the thing that I love watching. And I loved the fact of team conference that we had the opportunity, if we were, you know, old enough and stuck around long enough to see kids go through as a delegate, and then see those who were high driven leaders come up and help the college staff, and then go on to do state staff or go on and be an adult volunteer mentor. And watching that it's so much fun to see that transition. And I think you're right. A lot of the reason why we go on and continue to do these things, it is selfish because we love to do it. It fills our feel goods. And part of that selfishness is seeing others succeed as well. You know, I mean, you and I, we grew up with the Nancy Chaffins and the Melody Cowers of the world. And those people would not have sacrificed or invested so much of their life into us if they weren't being a little selfish.
Yeah, that's true. But as you point out, I think it's, you know, one of those great things. You're not thinking, I mean, maybe towards the end of high school, you're thinking of it as a way of like, I'm shadowing these leaders or I'm learning this way. But for much of that experience, you're just, as a sponge soaking up what the quote unquote better leaders around you are doing. Melody Cower, I was lucky enough to work with. You, obviously a big one there, learning from people around you, my peers, like again, Daniel Utter and I were very close friends, and, watching him gain his leadership skills or learning from the ways he did certain things, better than me, were always really, driving factors to how I would become a better leader or how I thought of myself as a leader in some senses.
Yeah. And, you touched on it a second ago, is it's also a safe environment to fall flat on your face and to get your teeth kicked in, which is part of growth and part of learning. And that's one of the things that I look back on and I cherish, is all the times that I did screw up and I messed up and did wrong and said wrong and everything. But it was a safe environment to do that because you had your peers were there and had your back. And then we had phenomenal mentors that were like, okay, dum, that wasn't the right way to do that. Let's do it the right way. And having that was, because I can tell you, being around the world now and being part of different programs, not just 4-H, that doesn't exist everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exist everywhere. And it breaks my heart to see kids, either young kids or the older kids, or adults. Let's just say people. It breaks my heart that they don't have that, or they've never had that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why, because 4-H is hard for me to do as a military family because we're all over the place. Yeah. But I have been coaching the kids as soccer for, Madison was 5 and she turns 12 in 2 months. So 6 years, whatever that is, 6-7 years. And that's my little way of doing that. And it's a really small impact compared to if you start as a clover bud at 7, 8, and you go through till you're 19, going to college, 18, that's some impact.
Mm-hmm.
That's some impact.
Yeah, that's a lot of time. But I feel like, so I'm less involved with like youth or leadership or anything like that than I feel like I ever have before. Obviously, I feel like around grad school, I got busy with my own things and, mm-hmm. drifted from my friends that I was super close to, and drifted from having the time to like give to those programs. But I feel like, to your analogy of like the soccer thing, I obviously also had coaches growing up, and you see it like, yeah, it's not quite the length that you described for maybe every summer from 9 till 18. But even for 4 years, if you're their coach, you're getting an hour a day every week for like 6 weeks. Yeah. Or maybe 3 hours a week for 6 weeks. That's a lot of hours. And over time they add up. And, I can think back to my coaches in athletics, and you get the smaller snippets of that. So I'm sure you're still able to, maybe not to the same breadth, but still impact people on that level. And I think that's cool that you still find the time to do that. It's tough. It's tough to find time and want to, beyond yourself and your own daily routines, habits, needs, families, to go out there and do that. So,
well, it's selfishness on my part, 100%. I won't debate it. It's absolute selfishness on my part. But, and I agree with you, is every opportunity we get, and we're talking about youth leadership, but brother, you're in the professional side of life, and you're impacting people every day too. Mm. You may not see it, we don't see it in tangible ways, but you're impacting people too. I mean, shoot, when's the last time you and I sat down and talked face to face?
Yeah, like 2016. It had to be like 2017, 2016 era. So yeah, a lot of years ago.
So, Zach, you're impacting me, and we don't even freaking talk to each other because you are such a incredible influence to me. And I know I'm this much of the influence you have on those around you and your family and the people you grew up with. To see where you came from and where you're at now and what you're doing now, which I want you to brag a little bit on what you're working on as well, you know, in your body transformation and the goal that you're put together, and you know, you sharing that with the work, brother, that is, you are. And that's a testament to Zach Dupree, man.
Yeah, in like a braggy way for sure. But again, I'll say I always just see it as, that's your life you're living, even if it's impacting others. But I feel like if everyone, just set themselves goals, right? Like I'm trying not to make it super
Say
like
it, preach
pushy or
it,
whatever, but like you know what
preach.
I mean? Just set yourself goals, and you will find those natural ways to like interact or teach people things. Maybe that's the way you're leading. It doesn't all have to be, like, as you just said, it doesn't have to be youth leadership, but yeah, maybe you're helping people at work, and it's almost like a kindness thing, but maybe not so much. But it's just being your authentic self. If you can find the strength to do that, will allow you to impact those around who resonate with that, is like the really
Ooh,
kishy way of saying that.
ooh. You need to expand for a second. Having the courage to do what?
Be your authentic self, or be who you are.
Why does that take courage, brother?
Yeah, because I mean, it's not easy. Like even pre-social media, like everyone gives social media a bad rap, and I would agree it does have a terrible rap and does do some awful things. But even before that, you think of our youth, or you think of going to high school. Anyone can think of going to high school and feel how terrible it was to be worried about being yourself, or to say, hey, I like this thing, or hey, I'm super into XYZ. Kids get scared of that. And you never, like, a lot of people never shake that. That's hard
Yeah.
to lose, because people try to be nice, but people care less as they're adults. And so they're less likely to, yeah, you might say, like, oh, I'm really into lifting weights. And your friend might be like, awesome, cool, good for you. And that's like a 3-second conversation on to something different.
Right.
But you have people that resonate with that if that's what you're into. And now you're talking for an hour about the most minuscule facts about programming that you could do to help yourself be good at that, or the things you enjoy about it. And you've lost track of time. And it's those people you need to search out. And that's, could be weightlifting, that could be your work, that could be your spouse. But I just, again, think that it takes courage, because not everyone likes what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. They don't have to. That's not the point either. But the point is, I was looking through some of your archives and seeing who you've talked to and just the things that they've done. And that some of them, again, because they're from Salmon, I know some of these people, like Teresa Miller, who wrote a book, and that's amazing. Again, it's one of these things, like, I'm not a writer. I couldn't fathom doing that.
Right.
So trying to do the self-publishing and doing the effort to get that out.
Right.
But she did, and she, loves it. And she talks about it to anyone who will listen. And that's the cool part.
Yeah.
And so if you can put yourself out on that limb, it gives you a place to find those that will connect with it. And I think that's
100%.
just it. It takes courage. It takes courage to be who you think you are. And maybe sometimes it's not even doing anything. Maybe you like watching TV. Talk to people about the shows you like. It doesn't have to be crazy. That's the easy part. But the hard part is trying to be authentic to yourself and trying to, like, find the courage to share that.
So it's super ironic you say it that way, because I just had a conversation with a good friend of mine earlier today, and we were talking about, not necessarily in the same language as authentic self, but I equate it to when we are not in that, using this terminology, we're not in our authentic self. So we're acting, we're not, or we're just not, we're not us. And so we have that group of people, family, friends, whomever it is, that is your identity. That is who you are. And then as we make changes in a positive direction to get us to our more authentic self, or who we truly are, we lose people. And I think that's another part of that courage, is that freaking sucks, because some of these people have been with us forever. And when we make those changes to get into a better place or whatever that is, those people, there's no gel there. You know, it's a different tribe. It's a different whatever, you know, and that's a lot of that courage as well.
Hey, that's my wife.
Hi, wifey.
Yeah, she just got home. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, yeah, and I do think that's hard. You know, as someone who's been into some of the nerdiest hobbies that could be known to man, I felt that. But I think another interesting point you just shared is you have these people around you, and you sometimes find yourself curating it too much. That's like where you're maybe not being as courageous as you could. But then there's people who don't know that aspect of you. Yeah. You'd be surprised, Dale. There are people out there who still to this day, like, ask my parents what I do and then say, I would have never thought that he was really interested into math. And these people have zero idea that that's like a passion of yours, something you're good at.
Right.
Oh, he played on the hockey team, but we just thought he was kind of into sports, and, you know, he did okay in school, but, you know, never registered. Right. Or, oh, I didn't know that was something you're super into. And so you find that maybe some groups only see certain sides of you, and, you know, they don't have this full picture of, oh, I would have never known you're into, like, what's one of my random hobbies, like anime, or, you know, I didn't know you're really into playing video games on top of all the things you do. And I think, yeah, if you can still share that, there's places to find your people in those. And again, that's like super kitschy to say, but I think that's the way I would say it.
No, that's just life, man. That's just, and the beauty of life right now, even though social media it has its demons and its frustrations, it also allows us to do what we're doing right now, and to connect in ways that prior to 10 years ago, when you moved, you lost people. You know, it was just, it was just the way it was. And now it allows us to have more access to people. And that's super fun. And us moving all the time, you know, what was this? This was our 7th move. And now granted, I'm a people collector. That's what I do. I collect people. And in that, this has allowed me to keep track and keep in contact with an insane amount of people. And it's so amazing. It's so amazing. So what are you doing now? You're an astrophysicist. You studied black holes. What are you doing now?
Yeah, so towards the end of my degree, I was thinking I would stick towards academia. For, again, the longest time through grad school, I thought I'd want to be a professor or stay, you know, in the academia sphere and, you know, teach a little bit, do my research, maybe get involved with, you know, diversity groups. That kind of aspect really interested me. But I got really burnt out towards the end of school. This is very common with people who get PhDs and spend 11 years in college. Anyways, I got super dissuaded, and my things weren't going in my degree the best way I would like. I was doing a lot of solo work. I did a lot of work by myself, being a theoretical physicist. My advisor was very busy. He helped me as much as he could, obviously, but, you know, I started applying to postdocs, and eventually at the end of the day, you know, just seeing, and it's not to make everything about money, but just seeing, you know, more of the slog of postdocs don't make that much money. It's X years until you get, you know, an intro professor position. It's X more years until you get tenure anywhere. You know, that's a long slog. And as the kids would say these days, you know, the math wasn't mathing to me anymore. I just wasn't sold on like making $0 for that effort anymore. And I was more interested in supporting my family, supporting Kelly, who'd been helping us through most of school. And, you know, I had this degree that a lot of people did see as, you know, for lack of better words, very desirable and very affluent. And I decided to start trying to find a place to make more money off of it. I was willing to sell out a little bit, for lack of better words. Anyways, towards the end of that degree, I was learning about some things that kind of relate to what they call the topic of machine learning or artificial intelligence. My degree wasn't anywhere like specialized in that, but that was kind of an offshoot. And I started learning about this career path called data scientists, which study data in general, but they study machine learning, artificial intelligence. And I saw that a lot of past physicists had started doing that because they were, desired for their analytical rigor. They were desired for their experience doing research, setting up experiments, and their ability to, again, do deep, complex math and really abstractly solve problems, but now to solve business issues. So I spent a year studying to start learning basically coding skills. I had to go teach myself Python. I had to learn a little bit of business acumen. But eventually I decided I was going to start applying to jobs and try to break into data science. And it took me about a year. I was working, full time while studying on weekends and trying to pick up some things and doing self projects to learn as much as I could. And then I eventually found work at my company, Aptima. I've, loved working for them. They hired me as a data scientist that does research engineering for them. And so now my job is to, instead of research physics, I research artificial intelligence again. It's all just a different guise of math, but I basically do research for that and try to help them solve their other business problems. We're close to consultants. We're not really. We do contracting. We do contracting with the government and different health organizations and stuff like that. But I basically join teams and help them apply math and computer algorithms to solve technical issues. It's very buzzwordy. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. And because of course AI is top of mind across the board. I mean, ChatGPT and everything that everyone's doing, Bing, and of course that's the consumer side of what we all see. Mm-hmm. And yet you are on the backside of that, developing and making it all work.
Yes. Kind of.
Where do you see, okay, in general then, and I love asking this question, where do you see AI going in the next several years?
Yeah, I feel like it's tough to say. So one of the hard parts with AI or even research in general is sometimes they're all the same words, like that are rebranded, right? So we've had them for a long time, but we're still doing them. So the bulk of AI will continue to be basically linear regression. How do we maximize profits? How do we make sure the stakeholders, the shareholders are getting their money? Like whether that's predict how many units we're going to sell, blah, blah, blah. All of that will continue to drive most of the economy. The things we're focusing in now and refining are some of the new pockets, ChatGPT being one of them, and the enamored people with that. But it's got to drive revenue if it's to stay, which it is doing. But to me, the next big bump, now that we have huge things like ChatGPT, they're going to move it like they've already been doing and do multimodal. So that's things like images, text, video, all combined into some packaged black box that is doing reasoning for you and creating insight for you with less skill needed by the quote unquote layperson who's using these tools. From there, obviously the holy grail is, what do they call that? Like AGI, artificial general intelligence. And so AGI is the belief that you can advance these models so much so that you kind of just, you get your doomsday kind of feel. You set it loose and it goes off and learns its
You
things.
can just step away.
And it starts like, whoa, what did I get asked? What do I need to know? I'm going to go to the internet. I'm going to do whatever. And it's creating, brand new functionality. That's probably the end dream for some people. I don't know how I feel about that. We're still, in my opinion, quite a ways off of anything like that. Most AI systems at the end of the day are very fancy ways to say probabilistically what's the next best output in the most simplest fashion. ChatGPT is the best way to say, here's a sentence I was given. What is the most likely words to come after that? It has zero thought process.
So since you spent so much time in secondary education and you even helped as, TAs, where do you see education, specifically secondary education, going, being that we have access, us lay people have access to this kind of technology, and as it's becoming more integrated with internet search on top of that, where at in secondary education, primary education, that's another thing, but in secondary education, where do you see that adjusting?
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's tough for me to say. The end result, I would say, is it's just going to make things more efficient. I heard a lot of people really worried that it would just destroy education as we know it. I don't see it that way because people forget they can make you go by the blue book again. They can make you sit in a lecture hall and write with a pen, write with a pencil. So like the fact that you can use these tools now isn't going to stop higher education from giving those types of exams or doing closed rooms exams, etc. Like that's also going to be there. So it really just comes down about, similar to like when the internet first came around or cell phones or, any of these tools, it's just going to create more efficient ways for people to pick up education where they couldn't. Like
I
even
agree
when I
with
was
that.
going to school, you could start, getting Stanford's curriculum online. You could see what people in Stanford were studying, seeing what the PhD students there were learning. And so now you're much more in a place like, yeah, it matters where you go to school, mostly to name and who's going to be teaching you. But it's not a difference in what information you have access to or what books you can get, because that's no longer like that's 100 years ago. That doesn't matter anymore. You can get whatever book you want offline.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where AI takes us. It's just going to create people to think outside the box and be more efficient in maybe the way they're studying, maybe the way they're summarizing things.
I think that that's the way I'm looking at it, is as an educational system, even primary education. I think that we're going to have to change how we're teaching just a little bit with the resources. Because let's be honest, once internet hit, they had to change kind of how they educated
Mm-hmm.
and where the resources were coming from and how to source, and where, because things were quicker, and we were able to upload things quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is just another evolution of that. Maybe even more so. I already know guys that are using ChatGPT to write their college papers, and
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of that kind of work in high school. Even there's a lot of that happening, and I know in business for myself, I use the snot out of it because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a great writer. I conceptualize really well. I know where we're going with this, but to put the words in a nice, neat sentence that makes paragraphs and oh, I mean, that is just not my game.
Yeah. I think the strength's there. Like I'm still wary of like using it to write tons for me. But as far as like creating templates or ideating or things of that nature, like, hey, I have to email this person this. Can you make it sound business-esque, or can you do it? And then you still have to go back and edit it.
Oh
I've
yeah.
seen people say it's going to kill code, but as someone who does some level of coding, like, yeah, it can create a lot of really interesting things fast, but most of the things I've had it like try to create start to finish, I still have to have a hand in and go fix. And some of those things aren't apparent to someone who doesn't code. You would have to have expert knowledge of the language or of the tools it's using to make sure they're going right.
Yeah.
So that's like saving grace a little bit. I would encourage people like to get the most out of it would be, especially like if you're a student, like use it as like again, study tool. You no longer need a tutor. Say, hey, I'm studying this subject, you're an expert in it. Can you give me, challenge problems in this, subset of area in algebra, if you're trying to learn algebra, or, in time series or whatever you want. And it will be able to create those things to you. Then you have something now to iterate over with the person and get the best of both worlds, in my opinion.
I like that. I like that. Zach, if you had the opportunity, what would be the biggest piece of advice you would give your 18-year-old self?
Oh, it's a tough one. Um, Biggest advice.
Da, na, na,
Yeah, I don't know.
na.
I'm such a goal-driven person. I'd probably think like my advice to my past self would be to again have some courage to set the goals you want and stick to them. Right.
I
So
like it.
it's pretty generic, but you know, I am the kind of person once I like get on something or super interested in something, 90% of the time I'm going to complete it or I'm going to go do it. I just need to set it as a goal and you know, track it, make sure I'm doing it. So I think like telling myself to have faith in that kind of mindset and that it'll bring the results, maybe not, because people get scared of instant results. And so like just telling myself it takes time, but just stick with it. I was so worried throughout all of grad school that, you know, I was never, sorry, my cat's being so loud. That I was never going to finish, that I was never going to get the degree. And that, you know, maybe at some point I'd burn out or at some point I wouldn't, you know, be strong enough or have the skills. So really sticking through us again, 11 years is what it took. So telling myself younger that like, believe in that goal and continue to believe and trust would probably be up there. And then a quick second goal would be just to tell myself to try to live a little bit healthier, a little bit earlier.
That's fair. That's fair.
Because, you know, not a knock to myself. I did a great job losing a bunch of weight, but there's a part of like not wanting to even get to that, right? Like start keeping on the right track and not letting yourself get to that stage or, you know, get to that unhappy place where you're depressed and, you know, living an unhealthy lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. And being in that depressed state, a lot of times we don't recognize we're there until way later.
Until it's too late. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Zach, thank you. Thank you. You are an incredible human being. You set the bar really high, brother. And I love that you've done that. And I know you didn't do it on purpose, but you have set the bar high. What you've also done is shown us that it can be done with the goals, with the perseverance, with the work, with everything that you've done. 11 years in college. Dude, I couldn't even do 3. Okay? So you've lost an incredible amount of weight. You're going on to compete. You have a really super incredible wife who has helped you. You have a cat that just wants your attention.
Yeah, exactly. She won't shut up. She's not dinner,
you
so
know,
she should.
You are an inspiration, and I appreciate you.
Well, that's very kind to say. Yeah, I feel like the conversation wouldn't be complete with, again, hey, shush. Sorry. Yeah, like again, super maybe kishy and heartwarming, but like to me, it's all again one of those things. Even though I did a lot of the hard work or, you know, buckled down and whatever those tasks were, I still had supporters who maybe aren't lifting it themselves or pushing me to study or doing those things, but they make you safe and comfortable to continue doing that. And that's like the leadership aspects. That's like my parents, my family, all of that. You have those people around you that can help keep you accountable and drive you to be successful. And, you know, especially you are one of those leaders, like super inspirational, right? So there are those, you know, small, what seem like small turning point moments, but that keep you on the track to continue to be, you know, what you want to be or to try to do that. You know, if I didn't have that conversation with you all those summers ago about how interested in science I was, you know, it takes someone being interested in your goals for sometimes you to ideate them, and you know, continue to do it. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. I hate people who say like, oh, I did this and it's all just me, you know. Again, maybe there's that 1 in 1,000, 1 in a million that you're so amazing and you're so talented, you could. But to me, I feel like I got to do all the amazing things that I've been good at because I've had a really good community around me.
Well said. Well said. Ladies and gentlemen, I couldn't say it better.
Put a bow on it.
Put a bow on it. Drop the mic. Call it a day. Print it.
Go do your math homework. Just kidding.
I suck at math though. No. And so with all that, ladies and gentlemen, this is Zach Dupree. Will, you'll always be Zach, brother. And I appreciate you being willing to let me keep the Zach name alive. But ladies and gentlemen, this is what we do. This is what we have the opportunity to do. And because of so many of the things that Zach has said today, I have this opportunity as well. And Zach, thanks for taking an hour of your day to do this and to share some phenomenal wisdom with folks that I anticipate there's some folks that needed to hear what you had to say today.
Well, again, if just one, right? If anyone listened to this and goes out there and does a new challenge or goes after the goal they've been going after, just do it. You got it.
Win. That's a win. That is a win. All right. So we're going to finish with that. Zach, stick around for just a minute. And so we can close this up afterwards. Ladies and gentlemen, this is KickASSery. I'm Dale Maxwell. This is Will Dupree. We are KickASSery, and I have the beautiful and amazing opportunity to just talk to people and share things. I'm also very excited for new opportunities with KickASSery coming up. I've had a couple meetings this week that by not saying no, by saying yes, let's talk and figure some things out, I'm very excited on some expansion and some new stuff with KickASSery. So, Zach, thank you, sir. You're a rock star. You're a beautiful person. Keep smiling, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.